What's up, everyone? It's Shaft, aka That Mill Guy, coming at you with another interview, another discussion with another big member of the Nami community, or what I think would be a big member of the Nami community, championing some strategies and cards that you may not agree with, but have been doing really well. So it might be just that time to switch up how you want to play your Nami list. Now, that's enough about me. Y'all know why I'm here. Y'all know why you're on this channel, for that Nami content, for that mill content. So if you want to see more discussions like this, more Nami gameplay, and just anything like that in general, hit the sub button below. You can get more discussions like that coming up. But Nikaido, why don't you go ahead, talk about yourself. This is for you today. Let's talk about you. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. So I'm Kazuma, otherwise known as Nikaido. I'm from New Zealand, playing in the Oceania region. I've over 10 years of experience in TCGs. I played like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Duel Masters as a child, but they were all just casual games with my brothers and friends, and just playing at school. I didn't play in any locals or tournaments, so One Piece was my first competitive card game.
Nice.
And then I got into the One Piece trading card game before it was even released in English, because I saw it on Facebook, and you know, I was a fan of One Piece, being up to date with the manga and anime, and I was also a fan of TCG, so super stoked to pick it up. I'm also Japanese, so I managed to play with like Japanese people on like Discord servers, play with printed out proxies, and then I also played on Tabletop Simulator, so it helped me practice for the Super pre-release. And then I won one with Purple Kaido, and then the other with Blue Crocodile Leader. So that's how I kind of picked up my love for blue. And then, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So playing with purple, I guess Onigashima didn't win you over. It was the big counter out events of blue. Yeah. So that's good. That's good. So when it comes to, I guess, that love of blue, what was it about Nami that attracted you? You played so many other TCGs, especially, you know, I'm thinking of Mill not being that big in Pokemon, but there are aspects of combo in that game, and then Yu-Gi-Oh especially. I mean, at least with the outside perception of what Yu-Gi-Oh is, there's a lot of combo and fast interactions, and games are really quick, so there's a lot of interactability. Do you find that transfers into your love for Nami? Like, what attracted you, and what made you just, I don't know, you could have just played Sakazuki, you know what I mean? That's also another high skill deck. So talk to me about your love for Nami.
Yeah, so I kind of liked like the tricky playstyle, like just blue in general, like bouncing characters to hand, like and to deck as well, because I played Blue Doflamingo in set 1, Ivankov in set 2, so I just like the lead and like the color in general. It wasn't really the mill aspect, it was more the color aspect. Yeah. And kind of just like tricky bouncing playstyle. And then
I'm happy you played Ivankov too, because that's actually a leader that not a lot of players have played, and there's a lot of fun resource management in it, because it does want you to be low on cards, but there's a lot of cards that will bring you up. So there's a lot of like interesting aspects of value in that leader. So I'm happy you brought that one up. But you played from the beginning. So how has your experience been with the deck as it's evolved? Like, you've been around for the Red Menace, you've been around for the OG days. How's that been growing with the deck?
Yeah, so set 1 was actually super good for blue. Blue Doflamingo, Blue Crocodile, Blue Purple Crocodile, they played super well into the meta decks. It slightly struggled against like Kid, so, you know, but it was still winnable. When Whitebeard came out, it kind of changed, because, you know, they kind of just rush you down. And then Yellow, you just swing into their life, they hit triggers, and, you know, all of a sudden they got a bigger board advantage than you. Yep.
Well, and hopefully they have to, hopefully they just have to discard a card or two. But sorry, you were just saying Nami was?
Oh, Nami's in a good spot right now, so I'm happy.
Okay, well, we're gonna get into some matchup discussions in a second, but let's talk about some of your recent results with Nami. Obviously, Nami wasn't there for OPO1, but recently, so just confirming with everyone in the audience, you're in 06 meta where you are?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. English, so you're in 06, and so with what you just said, that Nami is in a good spot right now, how are you feeling overall? So when you say good spot, is Nami a top deck, or is that Nami has good matchups against maybe like the top whatever 3-4 decks? Like, what's your overall spot in 06 right now?
Yeah, so I think Nami isn't an S tier deck, unfortunately, but I think it favors into Katakuri, Perona, Yamato as well. My deck plays good into Reiju, and then it stands its ground against Sakazuki and Moria. The only rough matchup is Red Purple Law, obviously. They just rush you down and spam the board, but fortunately the EB packs aren't out yet. And EB packs is when Red Purple Law gets super strong, and that's probably when people are going to pick it up. So I don't see too many Red Purple Laws right now.
Yeah.
So I think Nami's good.
Okay, that's a pretty fair evaluation. Yeah, as long as yellow's at the top, there's a lot to be gained, and just as long as those yellow players aren't drawing big moms, I think we can all sit a little happy. So in terms of results, so backing up some of this, you played a couple events recently, especially at an online cup. You did really well, from my understanding. I think you did really well. So I wanted to kind of bring that in just because it was kind of a recent result that you worked with. And obviously you've been doing well at locals. So, I do want to plug the fact that you are on Twitter, and your Twitter and your social is going to be down below. So for anyone that wanted to reach out to you on Twitter and just, talk to you, go back and forth with you on ideas, that's all there. But talk to me about that online cup. I want to talk about maybe some tournament prep, because you've been playing for so long. And with your knowledge of TCGs, I wanted to pick your brain on what it's like to prep for these events and do so well. Like, what are some of the things you're going through mentally? So let's just introduce it. How'd you do in that tournament?
Yeah, so the online regional was quite big with almost 500 players. There were actually quite a lot of issues with like players getting caught cheating. Like a few well-known cheaters who got caught cheating, which surprised me. Luckily, I didn't run into any of them. Had no problems. So overall, I went 7 wins, 2 losses. I got 26th, but the 2 opponents I lost to, they were both 7 and 1 going into last round. So if they won the last round, I'm pretty confident I would have made top 16, but top 32 is still big for me. So overall, pretty happy.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people would be really happy with that. And I guess like going into those matchups, like winning that many games in general, like forget about however many you lost, like that many games, that's tough, right? Like I think a lot of folks playing Nami have a big mental block where they feel like, oh, there's so much of it that has to do with randomness. There's so much, I'm just going to win because of my triggers. It all depends on what I draw. How do you find that game to game? Do you find that you have a way to reset your mental? Like, how do you approach every game as a Nami player, like in these big events?
Yeah, so usually after like each round and before the tournament starts, I hop into a Discord with like my mates, and we kind of just talk in between rounds. And if I have like a really bad game, I kind of just like vent it out to them, just let all the stress out. And it's definitely calms me down and reset for the next rounds.
Yeah, that's good. No, and it's good to, I think that's important to highlight, because it's good to speak about maybe moments where, and it's not about losses, it's about moments where you felt like you didn't perform as well, whether that be a win, loss, like tie, whatever it might be. It's good to be open about those. And I think that leads into my next point about what you feel are some general maybe tips before we hop into some, maybe your deck list, maybe your MVB cards or whatever. What are some general tips that you have for Nami players that can maybe, I don't know, help them do better in general? There's a lot of mental aspect to playing the game, and you're a very, like, you seem and come off to me like a very experienced TCG player, a very good TCG player, and so that may not translate to a lot of people. What are some of your Nami tips that you could give out?
My tip is like just play as many games as you can. Play against people in your locals who know your matchup well. So you can learn from an opponent who actually like understands the matchup and can give you a difficult time. And then I was fortunate to have people in my locals who won regionals, top big tournaments. So,
straight killers. Okay.
And they even helped me like practice at home on Discord through webcam at nights. Okay,
that's perfect. And so I do want to highlight that as well. There's a lot of people that will say, I went whatever EXO at locals, and they're like, I'm a good player. But you have to recognize that sometimes maybe your locals, newsflash, might be a little easier than average. You do have to come across consistently those difficult players. So that thing that bad player is doing is not going to happen always, right? Like I remember the first time, and I want to see if maybe you've come across this before. The first time that when I was playing Nami, I had an opponent have this tactic where they would just play characters and not swing. And I was baffled. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, yeah, they're going to swing. I'm going to mill 2 and then I'm going to do this. And then they played a character and didn't do anything. And then they did it again. And then they did it again until they had like this massive board of like 10K, 11K, whatever K swings. And I was just being outclassed. I didn't know what to do. I was shocked. And so these are the type of things that newer players, they'll just swing 5K at you, whatever K at you, and they won't apply these alternative strats. Like, what do you feel about that? Like, is that something that you came across like early in your Nami days?
Yeah, there's obviously different approaches as to how to play against Nami. You know, different values of attacking.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know a lot of players like swinging 7Ks against Nami because it forces out like 2Ks or potentially 4K.
Right.
But yeah, the players I've versed in my locals, who've like versed me tons and tons of times, they, you know, try different approaches.
Right.
Some working better than the others. So yeah, I kind of just gotta like look at how they're playing and kind of just change my playstyle depending on the player. Right.
And then especially the deck, the approach that they're taking.
Yeah.
Got a tech in the middle. And sometimes, you know what? All 5 of your triggers draw you 2 cards, and it's hard to lose the game. But let's hop into your deck list. That's kind of why the big reason why I wanted to bring you on. A lot of folks have been watching the content on the channel talking about Crocodile. And I know Crocodile is a very divisive character right now. And before we hop too much into it, I want to talk about your list with Crocodile. So talk to me about some of the decisions you made in terms of pluses and minuses. How did you accommodate this? Why are you accommodating Crocodile? Let's talk deck list.
Yeah, so obviously the deck pivots around 7-cost Crocodile, but you know, the rest of the cards are just run in standard Nami lists other than Crocodile and Overheat. So with Crocodile, as I was moving to set 6, I was kind of just randomly browsing through Twitter, saw a few Japanese posts that ran 7-cost Crocodile in their Nami lists because there are sets ahead of us, set 7, and they have the Sengoku searcher, so they can actually search their events and Crocodile. I thought it was like a really cool idea, and then I tried running it in my list, even though we don't have the searcher, Sengoku.
Yep.
But surprisingly, Crocodile comes up in like pretty much all the games that you need him. So I ran 3 copies. I found that to be the perfect ratio. I usually saw 1 or 2 in all the games I needed him. And then, yeah, like I played in matchups that don't have easy removals, like Katakuri and Yamato. You know, I just played on curve and it gives you so much tenacity. Like you can survive like 2 or 3 turns being on 0 life. It's actually crazy.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. Like, especially, and again, limited experience here. So one game I had against Reiju was on camera. I have that up on the channel. And another one I had as well. Like, Crocodile, like, swings really well, right? Like, just being, like, I don't know, just playing so much Nami, I forget so much about combat. I forget, like, the whole aspect this game is designed around. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, you attach, like, 3-4 Dawn to this thing, and, like, things just start dying. And I'm like, this is great. Like, this is sick. Like, this is a great character. But what are some of the things that you had to take out to accommodate Crocodile in your list?
Yeah, so unfortunately I had to take out 1 copy of Zeph. So I run 3 Zephs now. But I think it's still fine. I still see Zeph when I need him. And then obviously firstly Buggy. I've actually dropped Buggy since set 4. So there are a few issues I have with Buggy. So firstly, the import down cards you can search don't really help with cycling through your deck. Like Brickfist might help, but if you have like a Kaya. But other than that, like import down All Stars is kind of useless. Deathwink is also useless until the late game. And then you also end up sending your Kayas and your Pilifs and your Zeph to the bottom of your deck. Like, it's okay to play Buggy if you already have those cards in hand, and you can afford like not seeing any for a few turns, but worst case scenario, you send all those important cards to the bottom of your deck, you brick up, and you kind of just have awkward turns where you can't play anything. And then thirdly, you also whiff your searches quite often with him. If you play him and you don't search anything, you've just wasted a resource from hand, a wonky counter, and just one Dawn.
Right.
And then you're also having to remember like heaps of cards that go to the bottom of your deck.
Yep.
And then if you're playing against like Sakazuki, or if you play like Desert Spider or White Snake Trigger, sending cards to the bottom of your deck, you're having to remember like 10, 15 cards, the order of them, and
absolute nightmare.
It's not nice.
Absolute nightmare. That is before you go on, my biggest pet peeve right now is a White Snake Trigger. It actually like gives me mental strain to think about like it's actually correct to use this trigger here right now, but I don't want to remember those cards. If I have to send it to the bottom, I do not want to remember them. So go on.
Yeah, so obviously like taking out the buggy helps you ease with like having to remember so many cards. Yep. And if you're playing like heaps and heaps of rounds, you know, you don't want to be thinking about stuff that happened in your last game, kind of just mixing up, you know. And then lastly, like the lists I see buggy, that still run buggy, they only run like 2 or 3 copies. So most of the time you don't even see it, or you just trash it as a wonky counter. So I don't see buggy as being a staple card right now.
Yeah, that's fair. And you've also subtracted like Deathwink from your list, which I think kind of makes sense. If you lose the buggy, it makes sense that you would lose Deathwink, because the best target you can get with buggy is Deathwink. It's not Brick Fist.
Yeah.
And Impel Down we're still forced to play because of the trigger. But I think that makes sense. It's a bit of a mind switch, I think, for a lot of people. Especially for me. It was like my mode and my brain playing Nami is always like, okay, I'm gonna draw into a Deathwink, I'm gonna play like this, I'm gonna do like everything enables that, because it's an instant speed peel off. It's a peel off on your opponent's turn. But how do you find that you play with Croc? Because as you said, you play 3 copies. You're probably gonna find 1 copy. Yeah. So you're playing around the fact that chances are you're gonna eventually resolve a Crocodile. What's your mentality like? Are you on the draw? You can go up to 8 Dawn, so you can play Croc and then attach a Dawn to it. Are you playing him out on 8? Are you waiting to play him out on 10? Or like what's your mentality and your play pattern around Croc?
Yeah, so with Crocodile, I usually drop him as soon as I can, because like if I'm going first, I'll just drop him on 7 Dawns without like attaching a Dawn to him sometimes if I feel safe. And then obviously on 8 Dawns, I play him and then put a Dawn on it. Yeah. So all my 1-cost events cost 0. The reason why I play him on curve is because I want to be able to drop 2 Crocodiles. Like if I have another Crocodile in hand, I'll just drop it, and then next turn I play another one. And then remember that like all the counter events in my deck cost 2 or less.
Right.
So you only need 2 Crocodiles on board, and then once you have 2,
and then everything's free. Everything but peel off is free. Yeah.
Yeah. Peel off is 1 cost, so you can go crazy with it.
Yeah. That's the thing I like about peel off and Croc, where if you attach a Dawn to the Croc, peel off is adjusted accordingly. Peel off costed 3, but now with the 1 Dawn, it costs 2. So it's the same Dawn investment. And then if you have 2 Crocodiles out, it just gets even better and better. So I do like it from that aspect. And as you're mentioning, it swings so well. But before we hop further into Crocodile, another card that I think is really popular that you play, I find like be very 50-50, Overheat. How do you feel about Overheat? Why are you playing Overheat?
So kind of going back to like why I took out Deathwink, I feel like Overheat is better than Deathwink in like some situations, as in, like when you're talking about versatility, because Overheat can be played at any stage in the game. It can be played in the early game, mid game, late game, while Deathwink you kind of just have to wait until the late game to actually make useful of the effect. And then Overheat is just really nice, like into matchups like Katakuri or Yamato that don't have easy removals. And then if you're able to bounce like Kai's to your hand, you can cycle through your deck super quick. Right. Also nice against Reiju, because the only removal is Niji, and then if you keep spamming Kai's, then even if they're putting you don't have many cards in your hand, so it's pretty safe.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty fair. And just being like, honestly, I just found like even now, like even if I'm not playing Crocodile, like I'm definitely adopting Overheats in my list. Just another 4K counter at base. I mean, it could be more. It could be a 5k counter if you just bounce a character and then counter out with it. It could be a 6k if you really need to in a desperate situation with a Kaya, but just really nice to have another like high 4k counter outside of like Gavels in the deck. So that does feel pretty nice.
Yeah.
What's your favorite card in the list right now then, in what you're working with? Is it Crocodile? Is it Overheat?
So obviously, yeah, those two cards have really helped me, but I think we have to talk about Whitesnake, biggest addition to Nami, because the rule of thumb against Nami used to be just swing wide 5Ks with your bodies and force out 2Ks and potentially even more counters, but with the addition of Whitesnake, like, if the opponents are using up all the Dons to play like more characters, then they won't have any Dons to attach to their like 5k bodies and leader if the leader's 5k.
Yep.
Which just prevents their attacks, or if they want to swing over the Whitesnake, they have to use the Dons, which means they can't play any more bodies.
Yep.
So yeah, Whitesnake is just so huge.
Yeah, I think the tax on it can't be understated, especially as you mentioned, like what you're mentioning about the Dawn tax is so key, and I think this is the thing with Whitesnake that a lot of folks aren't understanding. Like, let's say you play 2 Whitesnakes on one turn, your opponent has a full board, and so you maybe have countered out 1 attack, but every single future attack costs 2 more Dawn. Most of the time, it's like 5-6k bodies like swinging into you. It costs 2 more, which is huge, because that's a huge that just means like their hand, they can't play anything, as you mentioned. That maybe just means that they're countered out, because a lot of decks actually these days, I don't know how you feel, but in OPO6 I find a lot of decks are more proactive. Like in OPO5 I found that it was more like attack first then play. I found a lot in OPO6, and maybe just because the meta recently started, it's a lot more play than attack. So I find people in my games are using their Dawn first, and you can really punish them with the Whitesnake. Like, you can really tax them out with something like that, because you don't know what you do know what they've done from there. I don't know if that's what you've come across.
Yeah, so I think like the other reason people do that is because they don't want to hit your life, or if you run Overheat, they don't want you to like bounce your Kai back to hand. Yep. So that's why they get rid of it first, and then if they do that, then obviously you can punish them for not being able to swing over the Whitesnake.
With the Whitesnake. And as you mentioned, that trigger, spot on steroids, spot on steroids, top or bottom, top 5. That's a deep dig. Even if you top the cards, that is a deep dig. That's like you put Pilaf on top, draw 2 cards, you still know the next 2 cards. You know what I mean? So it's really nice in that case. What are some cards that you feel like, Nami in general, maybe you want to talk about it from an overall history of the deck perspective, that underperform, that you maybe want to see leave? There's some obvious answers, but what do you think?
Like, do you mean like in the past?
In the past, right now, like, what are some cards that you feel like you don't like playing, but we kind of have to? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I've kind of went over like the buggies and Deathwings, but in standard lists I would run that, but not that I could think of right now, to be honest.
No, I honestly, the 2 that always pop out in my head is, I really don't like Spada. I think it's like you can rearrange the top 3, bottom, top, whatever. The trigger's fine, draw 2, discard a card. But I think honestly the only reason we play Spada is the draw 2. I think it's like the Impel Down problem. I think there definitely could be a better card in the future, and one of the cards I always look to try and replace is Spada out of new sets. So every time a spoiler comes out or a new event comes out, I'm like, does this replace Spada? And also another card is obviously Impel Down. Oh Lord, we need to get rid of that card. That Impel Down, to me, like, Impel Down could just be called my name is Bandai and I'm watching you. That's what Impel Down tells me. Impel Down is like the way Bandai holds Nami down by chains, because it says, yes, we have to force you to play this bad card because it draws 2 on the trigger. But the card does nothing otherwise. It does absolutely nothing.
Restriction on the Impel Down leader. So they were obviously thinking about, like, Nami in the future when they were building Ivankov in set 2.
Yeah. And leader lock, I'll tell you what, we're gonna get into a good discussion because I really want to hear your thoughts around balance in the game overall. But let's talk about some matchups because we've been talking about some leaders. So I know that you have some big thoughts about this right now. So let's go into yellow. Whether it be category or NL, however you want to approach this, talk to me about talk to me about Nami versus yellow in general, and maybe if you want to get into specifics against the leader.
Yeah, so like before I start, I just want to say that I'll break down the matchups for my list. So it'll obviously be different from what a standard Nami build will play, but in my opinion, firstly, Katakuri, it should be favored for you as long as you have decent draws and triggers, because your Zephyrs are just so huge in the matchup right now. Katakuri have dropped Thunderbolt, and they also don't run A-Cost Katakuri anymore, so it's very hard for them to remove your Zeph. They run Reject, which is unsearchable, so sometimes they don't even see it in the games. And they usually only run like 2 or 3 copies, so your Zeph just stays on board. You force them to leave their blockers up and, you know, play more safe. And then you're more likely to get your Trash 7 effect to go through. And then, yeah, the only way I see myself like losing to Katakuri is if I just broke my hand, because Katakuri because like Katakuri can obviously with a lead effect rearrange your triggers in your life. So if they rearrange it perfectly so you don't see your triggers and your important cards, then you're just gonna have awkward turns where you pass without playing anything. Right. And that's exactly how I lost to Katakuri in the online tournament, because I just broke up and they rearranged my life.
Yeah, and they manipulated the triggers how they wanted to. I find honestly the ways that I lose to Kata, I think it just comes down to Big Mom. I think it's just like if they find that, I find that is the card that I lose to the most. I think 1 Big Mom is fine. It's okay. I think 2 Big Moms are where like I'm pretty confident like to call GG. I think at the point where they play Big Mom, you've probably lost at least 1 life. Once you start getting to like 20 or less cards, if they hit you with the second Big Mom, like I don't know, it's so much value gone. I don't know how you feel about Big Mom. I know there's a lot of frustrations with the One Piece community in general about yellow and 10 cost mom, but I find like Big Mom's the big reason I lose in general in Kata.
Yeah, so with my list, I actually run like Overheat, so you know, the only removals really just Geratsu right now, so I can just keep bouncing my card to my hand, so I cycle through my deck quite fast before they start dropping the Big Moms. And also my Crocodile just does so well in that matchup because they just got insane draws. And yeah, it's also a big body which you can kind of just drop and then swing into the bodies.
Yeah, exactly. And like punish them for it. Like you can just go so efficiently into their stuff. Like as you were mentioning, the Gedatsu coming down, that's another option to Zeph. But if they play that and start swinging into you, again, Crocodile, like I was mentioning against Reiju, such a good body. Such a good body to swing into 7K. I don't know. I feel like a soccer player, you know, because they got Borsalino. I'm sitting here with this croc body. I'm like, the world's my oyster. Okay, I can attack it at anything. But yeah, so that's the. Do you find that NL is particularly different? I know NL can be kitted a little bit more aggressive. They'll play like more characters on average by the late game. But yeah, what do you feel about NL?
Yeah, so we don't see too many NLs set, but I feel it's still a favorable matchup for you because, you know, they don't have the 7K swing like in Katakuri. But the one thing you need to be careful of, especially with my list, is 7-cost Crocodile, because NL runs Yamato and 8-cost Katakuri. So if you do play it, then you need to make sure you play around that. And also, because you're not swinging with your leader, like if you and your opponent's life adds up to 7, they can actually KO your Crocodile with Yamato. So I usually like take hits, or sometimes I'll even swing at their leader, so they're on 3 life, and then I can just play my Crocodile without it getting KO'd. If they Katakuri send 7-cost Crocodile to your life, that's also fine, because that means they're not rushing you down with a 7-cost NL. You get an extra life. They've committed the whole turn to
which is fantastic. Exactly, right? Like that's on play. That effect essentially reads on play, gain an extra turn. Like that.
Yeah.
That's essentially what that's telling you, which is great. So
Yeah.
take it where it is. How do you feel about Yamato?
So Yamato, I think the standard Nami list, like I see sometimes people like struggle against the matchup, but for my list, I think it favors for me because I run the Overheat, so I can just keep getting Kaidos back to my hand since they don't run removals. And obviously the 7-cost Crocodile, like, is just so crazy in that matchup. Because if you play 2 Crocodiles and you can survive for like 2 to 4 turns, it's crazy. And obviously the funny thing is because they're only 4 life, you can just keep swinging life with your banished Crocodile, and it actually wins you quite a few games because, like, I think the only blocker they run, perhaps, like, if they're running like the Wano version, is just the Momo
I think so, right? I've come across a Yamato list playing a blocker once. It doesn't seem like it makes sense with the strategy. I think the whole point of that deck is just play Hody Jones and try and win the game. I don't know. Like,
yeah, and that's the other thing with Crocodile is that even if they do play Hody Jones, and they rest your Dons, like, it doesn't matter. Your 2-cost events are 0.
Yes.
So.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So they kind of just have to tap down something else and like swing into something else, which is great. But like, I guess because the Yamato deck is so aggressive, I think that's like the trickiest thing for a lot of players. Do you find yourself taking hits from the double attack? Do you find yourself like using a lot of your resources to defend early? Like what's your approach to this? Because eventually you have to take a hit. I find like it's not like other matchups where you're like, I think a lot of matchups we don't have the conversation about taking life points, but against Yamato, because it's double attack, you kind of almost have to expect you kind of have to expect to take plenty of hits. When do you do that? If you do that, like, what's your approach to that?
To be honest, it kind of just depends on your hand.
Yeah.
And also how the Yamato swings. Like, some Yamato players will just load up all the Dons and Yamato swing, like turn 2 and 3. They just swing big again with a double attack. But it kind of just depends if you have like 4 keys in your hands. Like, especially Gavel is just so huge in the matchup.
So big.
Yeah, if I don't have Gavel, if I don't have too many Gavels or too many 4 keys in my hand, I'll just take the hits because...
Yeah, you don't want to use up like 2-3 cards. Yeah.
And especially, I want to keep counters in my hand when they play their own army. I don't, because triggers is just super important.
Yeah.
You don't want them swinging with their own army, banish, and then all of a sudden you don't have any counters in your hand and you have to take the banish.
Yeah.
And you lose so many resources.
Yeah. And I think so. I'm so happy you brought that up. That I think is probably that decision maker of like how do you want to lose these triggers? Do you want to lose them voluntarily? Do you want your triggers, or do you want to lose life without your triggers? And I guess that's the question of like, are you going to be ready for the Onami to come down? Or it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to defend early. Like, maybe sometimes it might just be better to take the hit, depending on where it is. And if your hand's bad, take the triggers, draw more, or, maybe there is a Gavel in your trigger and you take that out. But it's good to take those hits early. How do you find yourself, I guess, like, especially working in the late game? Like, do you find that against with like Yamato with Crocodile, that the plan is to attack their life with Crocodile, or is that just like a nice side effect? Like, how are you using Crocodile in this matchup?
Yeah, so Crocodile, I obviously prioritize clearing the board first, because with the lead effect, they're going to attach Residons to their characters, so always clear board. And even your Brick Fist is just super nice, being able to bounce at 4 costs. So I always use that. And then if you're swinging into the bodies, you're going to either force them to remove like counters from the hand, or they're going to take the hit. So that's 1 less body, and then eventually they're going to be very low in hand size. And if they play the Hody Jones, they have to take a life as well. So they're going to be low on hands, low on life, and then from there you can just swing face. And like the clip that I post on Twitter, you might be able to get a sneaky win just swinging with your face.
Those are, I'll tell you what, a lot of folks are satisfied when they win with Nami, but winning with combat with Nami, Feeling's different. That's something different right there. That's a different type of joy.
It actually happens quite a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I pulled it off on the sim twice against Yamato.
Yeah.
And once against Katakuri, but that was my first time playing in real life against Yamato. So
Fair enough. Okay. Do you have many thoughts on the Perona matchup? That's actually not. I've played that matchup once. I do not run across Perona at all, even at locals. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that leader?
yeah, so I only played against Perona once against my locals, but like I got a few practice games in before the tournament because just in case. But you know, I was lucky because I actually ran into Perona in the online tournament, and I knew the matchup well, but.
Okay.
Perona is a very easy matchup. Like, they play big bodies, but if you counter out the cheap early swings, you should be chilling.
Yep.
If the opponent goes first, it's even more free for you because their cheapest significant bodies like full cost, like Ryuma, Kuzan, Borsalino. So, like, they can't really play any bodies until the third turn if they go first.
Right.
And just the one thing you do need to watch out for in the Perona matchup is the 6-cost Brook. That forces you to send 3 cards from trash to the bottom of your deck on play.
That card blew my mind. I saw that resolved against me. I'm like, this is a legal card, and sure, it's not broken, but it's just uniquely insane against Nami. Like uniquely insane. So.
Yeah. So if you're down to like the last few cards, like you need to make sure that you play around the 6-cost Brook. So even if they send 3 cards to the bottom, keep in mind that it's 6 costs, so the most they can play is 1 a turn. Yeah. So as long as you play around 1, like just play safe, don't rush it, go for the confirmed win in case they do run the Brook.
Yeah, exactly. Save those gavels or think about like how you're drawing that and using your Dawn that turn. Is that playing around the fact that, I just need to play 1 gavel and I win, or could you have just like not played, I don't know, whatever card and saved up more effects to counter through that. So that's a good point. 6-cross Brook. Oh Lord, that's a card. Okay. On the aggressive note, and then I want to kind of touch on like black focus decks as well. Reiju. How do you feel about Reiju?
So Reiju, I often see on Discord and Twitter very mixed opinions about it. Some say it's rough, some say it's pretty even, some say it's slightly favored. But my list running Overheat makes the matchup very favored because you're able to just keep bouncing Kaya's to your hand. If they do play their Niji to KO Kaya, that's fine because it's better than them playing Reiju, cycling through the deck, or Ichiji to just rush you down. And then as long as he keeps bouncing Kaya's to your hand, spamming Kaya's so you don't have too many cards in hand, you can play around the pudding.
Yep, exactly.
And,
Yeah. I think that's really important, and I think this is another matchup where Crocodile really shines into swinging into their board, because they are going to be a deck that, honestly, they are relatively low on cards. It's not going to be a matchup where I find like Sakazuki or even Moria where they're just loading up. They can play 1 threat a turn. Like they're having to use a lot of these Dawn minus effects or card negative effects, which keeps them lower. So on average, like after a swing, maybe like that Crocodile is killing characters. I find. So that's really great. Like they have to play a character, they banish it, and then they play like a bigger cost one. I mean, I don't know, like that character's gone after a little bit, right? Yeah. So Crocodile I find is A1 in that matchup. So especially 2.
But like actually on that note, I kind of disagree in the sense that like I don't like swinging into their bodies.
Yeah.
Because if you swing into the, like, even with my leader, I don't like swinging my leader into Reiju because sometimes they'll just counter out and then make sure they have 5 cards in their hand and they just play Reiju and cycle through the deck even more.
That's fair too.
So yeah, I personally don't like swinging into their bodies, but I only swing if like they're very low on hand size and I'm confident I can play that board. Yeah,
like they're if they're gonna give that to you, then that's fair. Yeah, if they have like 5 to 6 cards, that's a very fair point. That Crocodile might just die on the backswing and all you did was get rid of some cards, but they're going to be up on cards anyway, so that's pretty fair too. Pudding's effect, is that any player or is that an opponent?
Just opponent, I believe.
Just opponent, yeah. So they couldn't like get low and then pudding themselves. No. Yeah, I guess that would be a busted card if it did that. Okay, yeah, maybe not. Yeah, that'd probably be a busted card if that did that. I think we would probably be playing puddings at that point. That's fair. Okay. I didn't think
like
through that.
regarding pudding, I like to have 7 cards at most in hand, because even if they play pudding and they make you shuffle your deck, like as long as you draw a Pilaf or a Kaya, you've gotten that 2 cards back, a value that I've gained.
Yeah.
So I think 7 cards at most is the value that I like keeping my hand size.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think it's just like a good thing to do in general. Like as we go into this discussion with another leader, like it's played in Moria. 4 cost when on play. If your opponent has 5 or more cards, they discard 1.
Perona.
Yeah, I think it is just 4 cost Perona.
Yeah,
that's a card. Like I think in general, OPO 6 is teaching these like kind of good ideas for Nami players in general, where I think in a lot of past metas, a lot like you could really ignore what your opponent is doing. Like a lot of times, like characters could just have blank text. All you cared about was the fact like how much power it had. But now you're having to care more, and I think like a lot of Nami players are learning more about like, yeah, text does matter. Now there are a lot of things that you have to be aware of. So yeah, keeping your hand size at a correct number, not being too greedy. Like, yeah, like I have 3 Pilafs. I'm not just gonna play all 3 Pilafs because then they're gonna pudding me and then I'm screwed. So yeah, that's completely fair. But hopping into that Perona discussion, Moria or Sakazuki, which one do you want to talk about first? Because I think these are 2 matchups where, especially with your Crocodile, I think I've seen a lot of people have their criticisms for this because they feel like, in their opinion, that Crocodile doesn't actually help you against those matchups. So talk to me about either one. Start with Saka or Moria.
Yeah, so I'll start with Saka first. So obviously I don't play my Crocodiles into matchups that can remove Crocodile quite easily. Like Sakazuki, they can just minus the costs, ICG even, and then remove it. So I just use it as a wonky counter or just pitch it out with Kai or Gavel. So I'm not too worried about it. The card that's like I want you guys to look at is the Overheat, to be honest, because the Overheat is quite huge in the matchup, being able to bounce the Hinas and even just the Tachigis and Branyus, because they become 5k, 6k attackers with Houndblaze. But Sakazuki, I found it to be like a even matchup, but it's not really an accurate measure because it heavily relies on your opponent, like how skilled they are and how well they know the matchup.
Right.
But yeah, like overall 50-50, I think Nami stands its ground.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Moria's probably unfavored. I think like there's some effects that if they get them on board like really early, I think if the first card they reanimate is like Perona, like I'm already like, oh my god, like already just taking an L. But Sokka, I think it's pretty 50-50. And I'm happy you brought that up too, right? It's like just because you're playing Crocodile, you're playing Zeph, doesn't mean that you use Dawn to play them, because those are matchups. Yeah, they're going to be able to remove them. Just save them as a 1k counter or Gavel fodder. And you're probably just going to be better off that way instead of using up all that Dawn to then just have something removed. And then you gain nothing out of it. Especially Crocodile. Such a big Dawn investment. And then they just Ice Age kill it. And then you're like, what are you doing with everything else? I don't know.
Yeah, like on that note, I actually like playing Zeph to be able to bounce my Kai's from hand.
Yeah.
Just milling my deck.
Right.
So, but like, I don't expect it to be alive, but I think it's just nice being able to bounce Kai's hand.
That's good. So again, I'm happy you brought that up. It does still have it's not even like the bounce effect. The fact that it bounces and mills, I think it's key. Like if you have the Dawn to do it, do it. That's correct too. But I guess like don't play it on 6. You have 6 Dawn up. Don't play Zeph on 6 in a Sakazuki. What are you doing? Like, I don't know. Maybe if they have like, if by some god-given miracle you can play Zeph into an empty Sakazuki board, go ahead. But chances are they're gonna remove that. They have a Kuzan out. They have a brand new that they're gonna, attach. What's that event that gives a character like plus 3k? Houndblaze. Yeah, they're gonna Houndblaze the brand new. Kuzan's gonna swing into you. They're gonna play Borsalino, remove your Zeph, and all of a sudden you've just taken the biggest L, and all you wanted to do was bounce a Kai. Don't play Zeph on 6, please. Against Sakazuki, please stop doing that.
Yeah. Also regarding that, with Kaya, I like holding on to Kaya until I have options to bounce it to my hand, because they just have too many removals, and you want your Kayas because they're gonna send all your important cards to the bottom of your deck. So as long as you play Kaya, cycle to the bottom few cards of your deck, you can still win.
Yeah, and I think this is actually this is a thing that I forget a lot too, like not playing your Kaios out aggressively. It's important to note that especially in a list like yours, heck, even in a standard list with like Deathwing, if they put cards to the bottom of your deck, those are characters. Those aren't events. So at some point, like you're gonna get to like 6, 5, whatever, 7 cards left in deck, and you'll be like, okay, I got a Deathwing into this, or I'm gonna Gavel into this, and like next turn I'm gonna draw a card, like blah blah blah. But you're gonna draw into like dead card. Characters are dead cards in a lot of cases, right? Like especially late game, you want events, you want whatever cards. Like they're gonna Rob Lucci your Kayas, and then bottom deck your Buggies. They're gonna bottom deck your Mr. Ones, and I don't know, like those don't feel like the most useful card in situations where you need them. You really want events a lot of the times to be your bottom cards. You want peel-offs to be your bottom cards if there's any left in your deck. So I think that's completely fair. Hold up your Kaias. Hold them up. Be more patient. I struggle with being more patient. I'm happy that's why I have you on the channel. Your deck list definitely lends to patience and playing to value. I'm way too aggressive of a player. I'm way too, and you've probably seen that in my gameplay. I am too aggressive. Like I want value now, and I think that just stems from my other experience with TCGs. But yeah, those matchups in general. So overall, Nami favored, you would say, generally in 06. Like it's a deck that can contend. You can take it to locals. If you're good, you're gonna win.
Yeah, definitely. And even against like the aggro decks, you know, White Snake's, the addition of White Snake makes it slightly more winnable. Like, against Zoro, against especially against Red Purple Law, because most of their bodies are 5Ks, so you can definitely like deny their 5K White Swings.
Yeah, exactly. And Red Purple Law specifically, just because they have the Dawn Minus effect, tend to be like resource down, so they'll make bodies, but White Snake again is good to mention because the bodies won't swing large a lot of the times. Whereas against Red Green Law, oh lord, that is a matchup. That is a matchup.
Just hope the Sakazukis just keep them down.
That's the when they banned Sakazuki, let me tell you, the first thing I thought of was the fact that these Law players are, ooh baby, they're just there like double sleeving their Law decks and like, I'm ready. 07, I'm coming back with a vengeance. But no, we still have Sakazuki around, which is good. It's a necessary evil against the Law players. But yeah, is there any other matchup that you wanted to specifically highlight in this discussion? I think there's a lot of interesting thoughts that you have. Is there any other points or specific matchups you wanted to highlight?
I think there's been a few like Whitebeards in my locals, which is like, which is very rough. But good thing is that most lists don't run the 3-cost Zoro, so they can't rush you down as much. But the one thing that I like doing is playing my Crocodile, because they're usually not going to play their 9-cost Whitebeard. They're just going to be rushing you down with Rush Luffy and Rush Ace. So you might be able to just swing, 17k Crocodile into the leader. And sometimes they don't have counters. Because that's what happened in my last locals. And that's how I should. I actually misplayed that game because I should have just swung 17 and won. But that's something that you might be able to pull off.
No, it makes sense. I was gonna say, I was gonna mention like Crocodile is probably sneaky pretty good, because if you're losing one life, a turn, that banish is. I mean, I don't know, like that big body and that banish, and I don't know. There's a lot of things that you can get going with Crocodile. So the deck doesn't really have. I mean, the deck doesn't really have removal per se. It does have some pretty good like events to counter out with, but I mean, you're right. If they play to a wide board, that's less resources. So that's good. I have a max rarity Whitebeard player at my locals, so they're very menacing. A lot of shiny cardboard across the field and a lot of knowledge of Whitebeard, and it's one of those skill testing matchups for sure. One of those skill testing matchups. So hopping into, I guess, like a general discussion about the One Piece TCG, and I'm actually really happy to have you on because of your unique experience. I've had a couple other players that have come onto the channel with experience with Magic the Gathering, or kind of varied experience with One Piece. Maybe they've started from the beginning, maybe not. what is your take on the One Piece TCG in general? A good card game, a bad card game? Do you see some problems in it? I really want to pick your brain, especially with 10 years of TCG knowledge. Come on, I need to pick your brain. What do you think about One Piece?
Yeah, I think it's obviously like the fastest growing game right now. The rules are much simpler. You know, it already has a big franchise, just One Piece being popular.
That's still going. That's still just growing and growing and growing based on how the story's going right now. But yeah.
But like the texts and the effects are very short and simple. If you compare it to like Yu-Gi-Oh, it's you know, less you have to study, and the card pool isn't as big right now compared to those card games, so it's quite easier for beginners to get into. But you know, for ruling that is, but the problem is just products like starter decks in particular, like stores just not having stock and players having to buy from scalpers. I think that's a very big problem.
Yeah.
In this game right now.
And one thing that's I've said this on every episode I've done with someone. What I love about Nami is that it's literally a budget deck. It's a tier. It's like a tier 1.5 to whatever your opinion is. It's a tiered budget deck. Like heck, like mellows are going down in price too. Like what's expensive in this deck? Look, if you want to go out and buy your winner Kayas and your pre-release Gavels, yes you can. It can be expensive, but the deck is so budget. So I'm happy that uniquely playing Nami, you don't necessarily have to deal with the fact that I gotta go buy out a playset of Queens, playset of Borsalinos. You know, those are some expensive purchases. But how do you feel about, like, Bandai recently announced that they're doing a reprint set potentially, or reprint set. How do you feel about accessibility of cards in this game, getting new players into this game? Because you said there isn't a big card pool, but accessibility is pretty hard. I don't know, what's your take on that?
So like I know you talked about this with Nami GTA, but like I feel like an online version of the card game would be super cool, like for people who may not have the funds or accessibility to those cards. Because Bandai actually, like some people don't know this, but they actually made an official app, like on the App Store, like a tutorial, and then you're actually able to do gameplay and play an interactive simulator where you can play against like bots. So they've shown that it's very capable, that, you know, playing an online version, of making an online version. I think they're capable of doing that. But yeah, if they do that, I think there'll be more people getting into it. And also like the online aspect, like I said earlier, like there's a lot of cheaters in the online tournaments. I feel like just the online client would like help like reduce the number of cheaters significantly.
I like literally music to my ears. Everything you said was dead on, like hitting the bullseye. Everything. Okay, from the top. So you're talking about, no one has talked about. You're right. I have purposely never brought this up. No, you can go on the Google Play Store, Apple Store, whatever, and download the sickest tutorial app that Bandai has ever made. That One Piece tutorial app, the animations are clean, the gameplay's good. It's actually good. And then we have a sim. We have a fan-made sim. First of all, I'm not back-talking. A shout out to Batsu. You're doing God's work. I'm not back-talking. Bandai has the capability to do so much more. That app, everyone watching this, go download that app and tell me this game can't be better. Holy, that app is actually so well designed, right? I mean, like, there are problems to it. But it's, as you said, it's possible. And the cheater aspect, I think if you cheat in card games, you should be banned from that card game. I think outright, go get your redemption arc somewhere else. Like, your redemption arc can be somewhere else. I think, like, it's like you've made a cost-benefit analysis that was terrible. Like, what are you going to cheat so you get, like, top 32 or something? Like, you need to actually be good at this game to win games. And honestly, even in Magic the Gathering 2, my experience, and maybe you can talk about your experience with other TCGs, but even in paper events, not online, right? Like, Magic the Gathering has online forums. People will go to in-person events and still cheat on coverage. Like, the camera overhead, like, we're seeing you cheat, and people will still do it at top 8 tables. And they'll do like, and really what will happen is, like, it doesn't happen a lot in this game. So maybe you can talk to me about some of the cheats that you've come across and for ways that people come across it. But in Magic, what happens is a lot of shuffling, right? I'll say it there. There's a lot of shuffling, and what people will do is they'll shuffle and they'll purposely put a card right on top of their deck, and they'll know their opponent doesn't cut. So they'll just present it to their opponent and be like, oh, you don't want to cut? Great. And then they draw the card. And so that's a very recent cheat that's come out, and on Magic Twitter, a lot of people are calling for the ban of this player and everything. But what are some of the cheats that you've come across online? Like, do you know of any? You just know that they're cheaters. I like, how do you cheat in this game? I'm not trying to tell people, teach people. I want people to be aware. You need to be able to call these out. It's important to call these people out. But what are some of the things you've come across?
So personally, like in person, people in my locals are super cool. We've never had any problems with cheaters, I don't think. But it's more the online tournaments that has the biggest cheaters, because, you know, there's obviously like no one watching you. Judges like drop in occasionally to just see how's your game going, but other than that, there's no one just observing your games. And obviously because it's online, like you can kind of get away with a lot of things. Like sometimes your internet might cut off or your camera might turn off. People make full use of that. So definitely, number one thing is record all your games.
Yes.
Like I made the mistake of not recording in my last regionals. I did record it this time, but because last time one of my opponents accused me of cheating, and I didn't have my games recorded. So it was kind of just like a he said she said situation. Luckily, like the opponent kind of just fumbled on his words when he was explaining the situation to the judges, and the judge gave me the one. But
like,
yeah,
how are you gonna cheat and you can't even back? Like, it's so, it's so like. Go on. Sorry, it's so painful. Yeah. Like, anyway.
Yeah, and like regarding that, like accusation of the cheats, like I think I had like 9 cards in hand, and I just like drew with my. This was when I played Deathwink. I just drew so many cards with Deathwink, Lava Mellow, Gavel, and then he told the judge that I was on 9 cards, but I was suddenly at 3, and then, but that was kind of rough. So definitely record your games. You don't want that happening.
Yeah. No, I think a digital platform can solve a lot of this, because I'm not saying we shouldn't have online tournaments. It's important to have ways to access. Like a lot of people want to win. They want to play games for prizes, whether it be $5 or $500. People want to play for like prizing. And it's important to have these online events. But I think there's just a better way to regulate this. If you just have an online platform, and obviously it's a separate discussion with like, oh, do I have to rebuy my cards? Is it going to be like Pokemon where you can go 1 for 1? Or is it going to be like Magic where you have to reinvest hundreds of dollars to the online platform? Like that's a separate discussion. But I think it helps with even the meta, right? Like I find that like there's like, okay, so players like you, if I wasn't like actively perusing socials and like looking, I would never have like thought of like 7 Cross Crocodile or like playing like more copies of Overheat. Like it's important to an online community and a decklist in general. And please share your thoughts on this, to like play more games, and it's easier to play more games online. So a lot of people don't play the sim. It's unattractive to them, which is fine. But I think if you had like a platform with prizing, like just an online platform, look, you know, I'm rambling. Dragon Ball TCG has it. Okay, we can do this. We can do this. The Dragon Ball TCG has it. Come on.
Yeah. So obviously, like, you know, each online regional, they always cap like every regionals, and you know they max out hundreds of players playing. So I'm sure if they transfer to online version, like players will be fine with it. They can still participate. Yeah. And there's also like the unofficial webcam like Discord tournaments. With quite a few players. So on the sim. Sorry. So I think people are fine playing on the sim. You know, it's obviously much faster. Yeah, games happen much faster. Like just because a lot of the shuffling and searching, like all this happens pretty manually. And even the ranked community is going on there, like sim ranked and all that stuff. I'm not sure if you participate in that. Like a lot of, like they recently announced that they're going to do some integration. Like they're looking to literally like in the next couple of months, they're going to integrate with a rank system that goes directly off the sim. So you don't have to go to Discord and do all that. So there's a lot of exciting things happening with digital play. So that's really exciting. So I'm happy to hear that you agree with the digital thing. Sorry, and on that note, I kind of want to talk about Nami on the sim, because my god, Nami is just like some games like you lose because there's so many like interactions that you can't do that you would do in real life. For example, like giving your leader +0 counter to just using cards to maybe mill out your deck or draw.
Yes.
Like, you can't do that on the sim.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just, so I personally don't like playing the sim, but you know, it's fine to like get to know about the matchups, but you know, there are dozens of games that I should have won if I was playing in real life.
Yeah. And you know what? Look, you know what? To all those in the comments right now, like there's gonna be people that watch this and they'd be like, that's a dumb comment. No, it's not. There are so many cards that say up to, like your leader gains up to this much, or like up to 1 leader gains this. I think that's the wording. But it's important to be able to do that, to mill a card, to draw a card, and then still take a hit, because you need to take the hit to bet on the fact that your card is probably this card and you need that effect to go off. That is so important. The sim, notably, my biggest pet peeve that I've said forever, and I think they're actually changing it with the next update once OP07 comes out, is you can't play Impel Down. Like you can't play that card. That is so frustrating to me, because I've recently been told, like I've been made aware of the fact that in paper you should just be able to play that card out, because you should just be able to cast it and not actually use its effect, because it says you discard up to X amount of cards for the ability. And then also if you want to get rid of cards, like for Deathwing players, for you it may not matter as much because you don't necessarily need to empty your hand for Deathwing with Crocodile, but you can't do that on sim. It's so frustrating. It's so annoying to not have these options. But you know what? We're just being big brain elitists. We're just Nami players. Yeah. No one cares about us. No one cares about our whims. But how would you compare the win condition of Nami? So the mill aspect, I want to get into kind of combo and alt win cons in this game, because it's very divisive. We're on a conversation, we're on a channel talking about Nami. Of course we love the deck, but a lot of people don't. But how do you feel about the Nami win condition in One Piece? Do you think it's fair? Do you want to see it banned or get rid of? Like, should this game just be about combat? What's your take?
Yeah, so obviously this is kind of gonna be biased, like being a, you know, Nami one trick, but like I personally think Nami is good for the game. It provides a fresh and unique playstyle, and you know, it's not a troll deck. Like it's an off meta deck that actually has potential to stand its ground and get some of the meta decks. You know, it's not busted. You win some, you lose some. It's just for people like me who want to play something different but still have the potential to do well. Yeah. Like, and like you were saying earlier, like a lot of people say Nami is boring and not interactive, but you know, I completely understand, because you know, Nami's not attacking you at all. You know, your triggers are useless in the matchup because they're not swinging at your life. Especially like the category players. Like I think I recently posted on like a tweet talking about like, you know, people who hate on Nami, and a lot of the replies were just like category players, because I think category players are most annoyed in that matchup because they're not seeing any triggers. But yeah, as for like the player playing the Nami, piloting the Nami myself, it's just so fun. Like, you know, it takes hundreds of games to get to know the ins and outs of the deck, but once you do, you know, you would start winning more. It definitely feels more rewarding, because the deck, a lot of people would say it's the hardest deck in the deck to pilot, so it feels super rewarding to be able to move with it. Yeah, no, I agree with so many points you just mentioned here. Like, I don't think the deck is brain dead at all. Like, I think I truly do believe it is the hardest skill, like the hardest deck to play, because you can play it perfectly and still lose, right? In the sense that it's not just, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to your triggers. That's a part of it. But you played it perfectly in a vacuum, but then you didn't adapt to the consequence. You didn't adapt to that situation where, yeah, in a vacuum, it might have been correct to gavel, but maybe based on what was in your graveyard, you should have actually, like, I don't know, rubber banded, and then you would have had more cards to try and like get this card. I don't know. There's situations everywhere where you needed to make a micro decision that could have changed the course of the game. And I think that's what comes down to it with Nami. And also, to all the haters that say the deck is boring, I see this everywhere, every game. I'm a mill creator. My main channel is about mill and magic. It just, the people that hate on this game are the people that are on the archetype, are the people that are playing the decks that are uniquely positioned worse against it. It's just a biased view. I recognize completely if my opponent is going to play 4-cost Gion against me, or like a play set of, I don't know, like whatever the card that's bad against me, I'm going to take the L. Whatever. You did your thing.
you're probably going to lose against every other matchup because that card sucks and everything else. But Nami's high skill. Hating on it, I think, is a skill issue. Like, they're never going to give us back Kabaji. If they gave us back Kabaji, I would agree this deck would be a little too insane. Because I've played with Kabaji, and that's a ridiculous card. That's a ridiculous card once you get that going.
Yeah, any deck with like no cheap removals, they're not gonna beat Nami.
Can you imagine yellow against Kabaji?
Oh god.
Oh lord, those players would be screaming at the ceiling. But okay, on that discussion of alternative win conditions, do you believe the One Piece TCG should go after more alternative win conditions, and not just mill, maybe combo aspects where, and I'm just making something up here, like if you have these 4 cards out on the field, you win or something. I don't know, like that's a very simple way to do it, but just alternative win conditions outside of just I need to attack your life.
Yeah, so I think more alt win conditions would be pretty cool, but obviously making sure that they make the cards balanced to that you don't make the other decks with the same colors like broken with those cards. Yeah, like I know they've done this well for like Nami with the blue 5-cost event, Let Us Begin the World of Violence. That one, the trigger effect is draw 2 cards, but they made it locked to multicolor leaders.
Yes.
So it doesn't make Nami broken. So
yeah,
as long as they keep that aspect, I think it should be pretty cool having more alt wins.
Yeah, and I think something unique to this game is leader locking. If your leader is X type or whatever, like that's a very unique way to do this. Now, whether I think I fear the point where literally a card will say, if your leader is not Nami, then this, I feel like it's going to get to that point where they'll say like, as long as your leader is not East Blue, draw 4 cards, like something like really ridiculous. They're not going to draw, make us draw 4, but I feel like it's going to get to that point at some point, but I don't know.
Yeah, the problem is that like if there are other leaders that are like East Blue, then they can't really leader lockers, so there might be like actual like cards that are saying like specifically that leader. I feel like that might happen. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like the balancing scale that they have, which is kind of nice in this game. I think I don't have many experiences with other TCGs. I primarily play Lorcana, One Piece, and Magic, so I know how their balancing works, but having leaders does provide that unique aspect of balancing to leader lock things. So I think I agree. Other win conditions would be cool. And I think like OPO7, I'm so terrible with names. The new yellow leader, the scientist. Oh God, what's his name? Vegapunk. Yeah, I think Vegapunk is actually a really cool push in the right direction, where it's like a really unique leader. It's definitely not going to be a good leader because there's not a lot of support, but it's a really unique leader in terms of how it manipulates its life. So I think that's like a leader in a good direction. But speaking of that new meta, I wanted to end things off slowly, like as we kind of close off our discussion. Of course, like if there's other things you wanted to kind of touch back on, please do. But I wanted to look at looking forward into Nami, because mentioning that you are a Japanese player, you've brushed shoulders with potentially 07 players and looked at the future meta. How are you feeling about Nami going into 07? We're so far away. There's so much 06 to play. But I gotta ask, how do you feel about Nami in 07? Obviously in set 7 there's gonna be a few additions that are benefits to Nami. I see people playing different like packages. There's the Amazon Lily and the Kuja Pirates package firstly. And there's a blocker that lets you draw, and then you also have the searches, which is quite nice. And then that new 2-cost event that bounces a character to your hand, 4K. That's also just a bit better overheat. And then the other package that people are running is the 7 Warlord package, which is essentially just my list that I have right now, but with a single searcher. So that's what I'm super stoked and most excited to play.
And that's why I think the online formats, like just having an online client is so important. Like the sim is carrying this game. The minute 07 comes out, let me tell you, this channel is going to be flooded with 07. I cannot wait to try the new searcher, all these new packages, all these new events. I cannot wait. I'm seeing the 07 East meta cook, and I can't wait to join the feast. Like it's going to be good. I'm excited. what are some things that you would want to see out of Nami in the future? Is there maybe a gap in the deck that you maybe want an event to fill? Is there a character ability that you maybe want to see in Nami in the future? What are some things you want for the deck?
So obviously, the deck struggles against like removals, because since you're not playing like any bodies, and it can be hard to kind of clear the board. So if there are like any cards that that can kind of ease the board a little bit while giving benefits to Nami, like maybe like trashing the top cards of your deck, I think that'll be really cool.
Okay. Yeah. So protecting a character by trashing the top card of your deck. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I'm rolling it through my head right now. I'm a fan. I like that.
Yeah.
What about blockers? Do you ever see this? Like, I know Nami's like uniquely positioned where it's like, you don't want blockers, you want events, because events will go through your deck. Like, do you want the deck to become more event focused, less event focused, like more character focused? What do you think?
I think making it more event focused, like they're gonna have to like balance the triggers, maybe make triggers that aren't too broken, or maybe just not have triggers at all.
Yeah.
And if they make it more character focused, you're obviously gonna hit less triggers.
Yeah.
And then, but if you have like big bodies, like what I'm playing right now with Crocodile,
right?
It might just be more attack based Nami,
right?
In some situations,
right?
Just clearing the board with your bodies.
Yeah. And I think, especially if it becomes more character focused, I think that's where the game becomes like slightly more degenerate, where I think at least people have the argument to say that Nami works at least on their turn. There's a lot of interaction, but if the Nami deck just becomes like peel off, pass. Okay, I'll take 2 hits, peel off. Like if you just start having to do things on your turn and you're not interacting, I think the deck becomes a bit more degenerate. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like in set 3, I think I actually played like an attack based build.
Okay.
I played the 2K Mihawk from the start of the game.
Yeah.
So that has the same effect as Kaya when attacking, and it also becomes a blocker.
Yeah.
And I also ran the Soge Kings and the Nojikos, and that build was actually really good. It got me top 64.
Yeah.
So,
Soge King? Okay.
Cool.
Do you have like a pet card that maybe it's Crocodile and you're playing it now, but is there a card that you want to bring back? And the only reason I ask is because I wish Soge King could be good. I have a nice art of Soge King and I want to play it, but the card I just can't work. It can't work right now, but yeah.
Yeah, so obviously the Rush Usopp, like you might be able to just throw the opponent off. I actually played it in my last regionals.
Yeah.
Like I usually just run one as a tech.
Yeah.
Because like even if you trash Usopp, like you're making the opponent like very cautious, having to have Doms up or blockers up. Because
it's like a mental game. I love that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Rush Usopp. I have the alt arts as well. Gotta flex them at some point. But
and another card I had in mind, like paired with my Crocodile, was a 10-cost Kaido that lets you draw 4 cards. Because all your events, in my deck, they cost 2 or less. So if you have 2 Crocodiles on board, you should be able to get down the opponents down to 3 life quite easily. If they're a 4 life leader, you just need to hit them once with your banish. If they're 5 life, you just hit them twice.
Wait, Nikaido, you're cooking. No.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about this right now. Okay, you're cooking on this. No, I like this. Okay, how did you run this? No, because you know what? There was a time where I wanted to make 10-cost Kaido work so bad, and I like what you're saying. How did you play this? Talk to me about this list. How did you play 10-cost Kaido?
Unfortunately, I haven't managed to make it work yet, but I'm trying to cook a list up. Maybe run like maybe two
I'm in this.
maybe.
I love this. I like this idea. Yes, because you can attack with you can be so much more aggressive with it.
Yeah, and you have a 12k body, just clearing the board.
So 10-cost Kaido, the condition was your opponent has to have 3 or less life?
Yeah, 3 or less life.
And then you just draw 4.
Twice. Yeah. And like the other thing is, you actually might be able to just win normally. Like if you have 2 Crocodiles on board, you just swing into their life. You have a 12k Kaido, which is huge. And then you might just be able to just win by swinging at the face with lethal.
Yeah. I guess like the other tough part is, so you do have that lethal aspect. Like your bodies are just going to do a lot of work. I guess the tough part is like if you play 10 cost Kaido, you can't attach any Dawn that turn to the Crocodiles yourself, but they do attack. It's so synergistic. I like. So when you tried it, did you play like 2 Kaidos?
I've just been playing it on the sim, but you know.
Yeah. No, you've been testing it, but like, is it 2 Kaidos, 3 Kaidos? Like, how many did you play?
Yeah, I just play like 2, but you know, that's kind of a ratio I need to work on.
I like this idea. Like, I'm like deep in thought right now. I want to make this work because I had a player at locals that tried to put me on it, and I'm like, this is actually like, it's so like unique that I'm a fan. And they told me the next time I try it, I should try the 0 cost event. The one, it's like Gavel, but like you don't mill any cards, you just gain like 3k. That way, like on that turn that you draw for, you potentially draw into one of those, and like you have like an attack or 2. And obviously you don't force Kaido. If you can't play it, you can't play it, but definitely give me another thought. I definitely want to try this with Crocodile. I definitely want to try this with Crocodile.
If someone makes this work, like, please let us know.
Please.
Super keen.
I'm here for it. Someone, don't even let me know. No, tag Nikaido. Everyone in the comment section right now. I need everyone who's this far in the video to go try 10 cost cock. Tag Nikaido because he's the brain. He'll actually make this work. Let him do it, and then I will like blast it out because I won't play it properly. You need a man like this to play it properly. Okay, so get it to him. Get it to him. But that's great. So those are the big points that I had to discuss on the on our discussion here. I know we have a couple more things to do before we wrap up. Is there anything more that you wanted to touch on based on Decklist, talking about Crocodile or matchups in general before we kind of close things out?
Well, yeah, just like I think especially like my Twitter, I just didn't expect my tweets to blow up. I gained like 200 followers over the past few days.
Yeah.
Like, especially with the clip of Yamato, that was kind of a funny clip. But
yeah. Okay. Becoming a creator himself on the platform, that's good. No, if you're doing unique things and winning, it's so important to put this stuff out there, and I'm happy you are. It's so important to try these things out, do something different, and expose it. And definitely to anyone watching, I've said it in the beginning, follow the Twitter. It's down below. The conversation is going to be there, and obviously I'm gonna post this on Twitter to share there. But it's good. We need to have the Nami mob, the Nami mafia, gain a follow. For
so
sure.
Like, so with all my Nami lists, like if you've like followed me for a while, like you'll notice that I don't like running standard lists. It's always like something different. Like one time in the last set, I ran Red Rock and 3000 Worlds. And then in the online regionals, I ran Usopp and the starter deck Sarbels that bounced the 7 console list.
Yeah.
And that got me top 64. So, like, in that sense, like, Nami's just very lenient in the way that, like, because you're always cycling through your deck, you just pitch out the cards that you don't need in a matchup. And then, you know, it lets you just cook and just run in a few ticks.
I think like, and I'm happy you brought up the removal, like Red Rock, Sables or World. Like there's a Nami player on Twitter that like actively does that. Like they're not playing any Brickfist, I think. And they're running like some copies of Red Rock and some copies of, I think it's 3000. It's like 4 Dawn to bottom deck a 5 cost or less. And it's working for them. So that's what I appreciate. Like there is a core set of cards, but there's a surprising amount of flex slots, like a real surprising amount of flex slots that work actively. Like as long as you're like, I don't know, as long as you have your counters and you're drawing 2 cards, like, I don't know how many you think there are. I think there's about 4 or 5 flex slots, which is a lot. That is a big bulk of cards that you could be playing in blue. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot going on there, but yeah, no, so I guess that's going to round off our discussion. I know one thing you wanted to do was provide a bit of a shout out. A bit of a shout out to some of the folks that have been helping you out. Let's talk about it. Who's been helping the Nami players gain some notoriety?
Yeah, so I kind of have like a local like friend group. We call it the number 1 chicken. So, you know, shout out to them because they're the ones that help me like playtest and webcam. Yeah. You know, some of them are regional winners, some are top tournaments. So very skilled players. You know, they helped me improve a lot. Hiken Gaming is a team I joined recently. You know, I'm getting sponsored by them as well.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
you know, very cool, very supportive of me.
Yeah.
And also just shout out to my local community, Auckland and New Zealand.
Yeah.
You know, my locals are just stacked with some of the best players in Oceania.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
Very
like
cool.
what you're reminding me of is like I don't know how much you follow. I don't know if you know much about like the fighting game scene, but for I remember like a stacked locals, having a stacked locals always reminds me of the story where in the Tekken community, do you know the game Tekken, the fighting game Tekken?
Yep.
So specifically in that scene, there's recently been someone that's come out called Arslan Ash, and what happened with him was like, because like he's from Pakistan and Tekken's been dominated by the North Korean players a lot, but everyone kept saying for years that like for some reason Pakistan had like these crazy locals, the crazy killers, like all these really good players. And what ended up happening was one Pakistani player called Arslan Ash, essentially TLDR, as he came out of nowhere, and over the last 4 years he cemented itself as the single greatest Tekken player in history, I think. Like and that's just a product of his locals, right? Like when you practice with the best, and kind of bringing it back to One Piece, like you will only get far by practicing with the best, right? Learning their play patterns, like and it's not like it's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna know what to do against bad players. Forget that. That's not what this is about. If you want to do well with the deck, if you want to perform at tournaments and everything, you have to know what happens when your opponent doesn't swing at you, when your opponent like attacks you aggressively with a certain amount of like with certain moves, or they play this card in a different way. Like you have to know what the top player is thinking.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, based on how players play things out, like especially in a lot of like green based matchups, I find that like you can tell a lot based on how much Dawn your opponent has, because they could have a certain event, they could be playing things out a certain way. So you have to make these reads of whether or not an attack is worth it, a bounce is worth it, an effect is worth it, whatever it might be. So it's very important to play with the best. And I'm happy that you have that you have a team supporting you, that you have all these like killers at locals, as I was mentioning. It's the only way to improve. It's not just about playing raw games.
Definitely.
You actually have to play a ton of games against good players. Newsflash, to improve. But
like playing on the sim is like cool. Like no disrespect, but a lot of the time it's just people play testing, like, you know, new players on the sim.
Yep.
So it's always best to just get some games in with some players you respect and, you know, highly skilled players.
And join the ranked queues, you know, put in the effort, like
definitely.
join rank, like the average person, like, and I think it's like a mental thing, like, yeah, maybe the average ranked player may not be as good, but it shows that player who's now playing on the rank sim has put in the extra effort to join this new Discord channel, to then join these queues and like put in the extra effort, so they're going to be on average better. So yeah, maybe you don't have locals. That's one way to improve. Found your outlet. That's what I find.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, thank you for having this discussion with me, Nikaido. I appreciate you so much having me on here, or like joining me on here. Let's repeat this just on words here. What are some of the ways that folks can reach you to talk Nami, to talk Crocodile, or just follow your escapades in beating Yamato every other weekend? You know, like how can they reach out to you?
But yeah, obviously my Twitter, Nikaido TCG. I'm usually pretty active on the DMs. If you have any questions, you know, reach out to me. Even on my posts, if you comment, I usually reply back. And even on Discord, like the Nami thread on the main Discord, I'm pretty active there. You can also ask some DMs, ask some things in my Discord DMs as well. But yeah.
Okay, perfect. And all that is going to be linked down below. All that is going to be linked down below in terms of reaching out to Nikaido. But again, thank you for having this discussion with me. I'm looking forward to more of your escapades with Crocodile. Personally, I'm just waiting for the 07 to come out on Sim. I am like I feel like, to me, 06 is like soft solved, but I want to play 07. There is so much coming out, and I can't wait.
The funny thing is, I actually own a Discord server for New Zealand, like for my New Zealand community, and then, my nickname on there is like Nikaido waiting for OP07.
No way.
On that Discord, so
that is hilarious.
I'm definitely with you.
Okay, yeah. In that case, the minute 07 comes out, I'm tagging you in a post to be like, it's time, it's time. See you in the queues. See you in the queues.
Maybe we cook Tinkle's Kaido, perhaps.
Not maybe. It's just when. It's not an if. It's a when. Let me tell you, we're cooking 10 cost Kaido. I have 2 copies of 10 cost Kaido in a binder there, and they're waiting. They are double sleeved. They're ready. They just pop in and out. That's all it is. They are sleeved up and ready.
Yeah.
To play. But yeah. So bringing it down to the end. Thank you so much for the conversation. And again, as I repeating myself, looking forward to so many more escapades from you. If you keep winning, you're coming back on the channel. I'm gonna keep asking you to come back and talk shop and talk Nami. So thank you for joining me. And I mean, yeah, I'll let you speak yourself out if there's anything else you want to add. I don't know how to end my video, so I just say bye. So I'll let you say your last little piece as we say goodbye here.
But yeah, thanks for having me on here. Like, it's just so crazy that I've been featured on a channel that I've been watching for a while, especially focus on Nami. My favorite deck right now. And it's kind of crazy that I'm able to connect with all these different Nami lovers. And yeah, looking forward to how Nami plays in the future.
Nami supremacy, just Nami mafia, rise up. Thanks everyone for watching. As I mentioned in the beginning, if you want to see more content like this, leave a like on the video. Let me know what you want to see next. And if you want to see more conversations from Nikaido or other folks, then I got to hear in the comment section down below, who should I speak with and who am I bringing back? Thank you everyone for watching, and that'll be the end of the video there. Later.